We're excited to have partnered with the B News, an online news platform covering Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, and California. Our new program, The Business Buzz, gives you an inside look into the lives of local entrepreneurs, business owners, and those inspiring their communities. The trials, the tribulations, the successes, and the challenges. Welcome to The Business Buzz, now streaming on Dynamic Living Radio.
All right. Welcome to the Business Buzz episode. Actually, what episode is this one going to be? I think this is going to be number 4. And we are here today with Jim Hinckley, author and also blogger and also podcaster, person wearing multiple hats. Typically, the Business Buzz is about local business owners, how they connect to the community. And as a author, you're doing that locally, but you're also doing that kind of internationally. And being an author nowadays means you're your own business owner. Most authors, I think, are now kind of freelance between different publishers, and that's kind of how that world works now, I think, in a lot of the publishing era.
Well, you have to find ways to support the writing habit.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of money in books and publishing, but you can provide a community service, and you can make a living by blogging, podcasting, being adventuresome, creating a website. For me, what I do is share America's story and tell people where to go.
And speaking engagements, you're doing a lot of those. It looks like, not just here in Kingman, Arizona, which is kind of your hometown, but you're traveling all over the place. You've been as far as other countries.
Yeah, I was privileged to speak at the 2018 European Route 66 Festival in Zlin, the Czech Republic. And I've been to Germany, the Netherlands, all over the world. How
did this all get started? So you have more of a background kind of as being a mechanical person, working with automotives, vehicle repair, but you've done a lot of things. Like since I've known you, I think that you've pretty much done everything in your life. You've tried to do everything in your life. And then one day you decided to pick up a pen and or a typewriter. And things changed from that moment.
I am that old. I first started writing in 1990 with a 1948 Underwood typewriter. Writing is, I've always been passionate about books. I read books. I still try to read 2 to 3 books a month on a diverse array of subjects. And I've had people for years tell me I had a gift for telling people where to go. And my dear wife encouraged me. She says, you really like to talk about automotive history and how it applies to today and the inspirational people. And she encouraged me to start writing. And so in 1990, I sold my first feature article.
Cool. Was that when you were working with the car and parts?
That came a little bit later. Okay. I started out, wrote my first piece for Hemmings Motor News.
Oh, yeah.
And then I started writing, I did for the Kingman Daily Miner, I did a travel and automotive feature for a little bit. Then I started writing for Old Cars Weekly. And then I was associate editor for Cars and Parts magazine, wrote a monthly column called The Independent Thinker. Probably not one of the most lucrative financially, but it was one of the most rewarding. Because I profiled inspirational and fascinating people that transformed the auto industry that you've never heard of. One of my favorites was Ralph Teeter. This guy was incredibly perfected the electric razor. He came up with a way to balance high-speed steam turbines. But his most famous invention is cruise control.
Oh, wow.
And the most amazing thing about Mr. Teeter is he was playing in his dad's machine shop as a child, and he suffered a debilitating accident. The man was blind.
Wow. So he just felt his way around inventing things.
Literally. Envisioned things in his mind.
That's cool. Jeez Louise.
So
you were good at storytelling, like you said. And this is really amazing for those listening who grew up with the internet, where we look for things on the internet to find information. You're in an era where research was done the way that it was always done. You would actually do the due diligence of going to the libraries and requesting articles and requesting information from businesses, and then putting all this together to derive these articles and then getting them published, which is what a difference the era makes of just how information is consumed and researched. So it's really quite a feat.
It's changed, and I would never go back to writing books and things on a typewriter. Things are so much better.
Yeah.
But we have suffered for that because my spelling skills, for example, have diminished. And we've gotten so dependent on technology, we don't
rely on our own ability to,
And the other part of this, too, is the internet has given us a great deal of knowledge, but
it's true. That's actually a good point. I never thought of that. So going from employee to freelance, because I think that we're right now living in an era of freelancing, and not just freelancing like a freelance writer or a freelance artist or a freelance something else, but also content creators. So with what we do on the Bee is we do a lot of content creation. We manage a lot of social media. So a lot of people are starting to move into, they're going from high school, maybe dabbling into college, and then they're seeing that there's a lot of money that's able to be made outside of working for someone else. They want to work for themselves. Where did you find was the most rewarding part of that process when you made that jump, but also where have been the biggest challenges?
Well, I'm still working on trying to figure out the finances because it's like nailing Jello to the wall and evolving.
Yeah.
And you have to the best of your ability, continue to evolve and change. Move from typewriter to word processor. Mm-hmm. Working with you on writing blogs and things for your clients, doing things of this nature. We have to learn new technologies. We have to things, and that means that there's also finding new opportunities out there to make a dollar on different things. During COVID, I was able to figure out how to use other things and do presentations online and get paid to do it. Mm-hmm. It's never been easier to make money as an independent at this point. It's never been harder because it's a never-ending learning curve.
I think that's actually a great point to make, is the fact that when you're an employee, you have a fairly good sense of at least what your hourly rate is or your weekly rate. Your hours might fluctuate slightly, but there's never a week that you work that you don't get paid. At least I hope so. That's one thing I think that a lot of people, when they jump into freelance or entrepreneurship, when they're their own self-employed person, that there's times where you are still grinding and you're not getting the reward part of it. Yeah. And I think that comes also with, like we talked about, when you're finding information and resources, but you need to have the knowledge to be able to apply it. I think that the patience game is kind of lacking in younger people. They want it now. They want the Amazon, buy it today, get it tomorrow. They want to put in work right now and get the reward tomorrow. And I think that the long play is that you have to build up a brand like you've been doing for the last decade or more of Jim Hinckley's America, building this brand so that you're not only you see that the work week by week, book by book, article by article. Sometimes there's not an immediate reward; it takes time. But now you're getting invited to trips around the world where people want you to speak at their event. So the reward was built up by credibility and authorship. And you're at 23 books now. 22 books. So I think that's a hard pill to swallow. I think for a lot of people that are probably viewing and listening to this, is that it is not immediate. The reward is not tomorrow. It takes time, and you're still following that journey right now. You've been doing it as long as you have, but you still will have times of like, well, geez, I'm putting all this work, but I'm not getting any reward from it. But that's a big difference between entrepreneurship and just being an employee.
Got to be flexible. Mm-hmm. You cannot be rigid. You cannot afford to be rigid at all. You've got to be flexible. You got to be able to move quick sometimes, and you got to have patience and realism. It means
there's a lot of people that thought they were going to be
an envy. Be a reaction. And,
across a piece of information. Somewhere in an article, you came across.
I realized how little I know. An example was the Kingman walking tour that we put together here in Kingman with Kingman Main Street. I've been walking by the World War I example downtown for close to 60 years, and I had no idea that the sculptor who had designed those statues was involved in the design sketches for Mount Rushmore.
Oh,
and I
wow.
never realized that 40% of those Spirit of the Doughboy statues that was very popular. About 40% of World War I memorials used that, but only 3 were dedicated to a Native American. Also on that walking tour, the jail downtown that they're going to be opening tours now here in Kingman. I'm shocked to discover that that had been built by the Pauley Jail Company. That is one of only 3 freestanding territorial jails left in the state of Arizona. And the Pauley Jail Company is still in business, has been in business since the 1850s, and it's still owned by the Pauley family.
Yeah.
Things like that are just shocking, surprising, things that we see right in front of our eyes, and we don't know the story behind the stories. Cruise control. How inspirational is that when you don't feel like getting out of bed in the morning?
Right. And that's a great point too. And with technology now, so you go forward, technology helps those people that don't necessarily have the means to get around and go to do something. They can actually do their work from home. You do a lot of writing from your own home office. You do a podcast from your home office. So that wasn't even, really, I mean, I guess writing was always something you could do at home, but you didn't have the ability to connect with thousands of people instantaneously from your home. So that's definitely changing the game. So speaking of that, when you take your shows on the road, what have been some of the people that you've met along the way? And I know you've met so many, this might be hard for you to answer, but like, is there a couple highlights of people that you've met through your career that just didn't expect, didn't anticipate, or you did, and it was just out of this world?
I've learned, and I've always had this. My mom said I was born in 90 and I never got any older. I like to visit with people. I like to listen to people. You would be surprised the simple people that you run into every day on the street, at the cafe, that you don't take time to listen to or even just say hello to, have an interesting story. Of course, I being a name dropper, I've gotten into Jay Leno's garage with my work. But the flip side, I was back in Michigan speaking a few years ago, and I ran into a fellow named Ken Soderbeck. Short version, long story, there was an interurban rail system that was pretty extensive at the turn of the 20th century in central southern Michigan. It fell by the wayside by 1930. Well, Ken Soderbeck and some friends put together the Lost Railway Museum to chronicle this history. Well, in talking with Mr. Soderbeck at the museum, I found out that his claim to fame is restoration of vintage fire equipment manufactured before 1930.
Wow.
And he invited me out to his house, which was called Circus Farm. It was the headquarters for the Lewis Brothers Circus in the teens.
Wow.
The barn that they had used for elephants, he had converted into an all-green home.
That's cool.
But the most amazing thing about Mr. Soderbeck was his machine shop. He does every aspect of restoration. Wood spoke wheels, castings, broken castings, he'll recast. He'll do the gold filigree leafing, the engine restoration. He will stitch a cast iron engine that's got a crack in the block.
Wow.
In his machine shop, I don't think he has any tools that were manufactured after 1920.
Wow.
And here he is out in the middle of a place called Grass Lake, Michigan.
Yeah.
And these people are all over out there. Fascinating story. Young people that are doing wonderful things. French mimes trying to stilt walk Route 66.
I remember that, yes.
World War II veterans that are recreating their first trip on Route 66 with a Harley Davidson, a sidecar rigged up with their oxygen equipment because they've had lung cancer.
Oh my goodness.
And just amazing stories.
And that's something that I think that we should definitely talk about is if you Google Route 66 in Arizona, your name shows up. The connection that you have to what you've done through automotive history has kind of tied so closely with Route 66 that you've evolved a lot of your writing around that. And now I would think that you're probably one of the most sought after people to talk about it, Route 66 connection. And I think the one thing that I never expected when I first moved to Kingman 8 years ago was that locals don't know really that much about it, but internationals seem to be extremely educated in it, and they want to come here and they want to travel and they want to feel what it felt like to drive down Route 66 in America. Where is that connection from European people to Japan? I know they have an association. Why do they see Route 66 as such a moniker of the United States, that they want to travel here, they want to reach out, they want to take tours, they want to walk around, they want to take pictures on this road?
It represents the quintessential American experience, the open road, motorcycles, the freedom of the open road. I had a fellow when I was in the Czech Republic that just was, I got to know him pretty well, and at a conference, it was really something to hear him talk about growing up behind the Iron Curtain and listening to Radio Free America, watching bootleg copies of Easy Rider, which happened to be filmed on Route 66, and these kind of things. And he said Route 66, the American road trip in general, but specifically Route 66, motorcycles, the adventure of the open road, he said, for my generation, that came to symbolize freedom, like the Statue of Liberty did for a previous generation. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty amazing. Route 66 officially doesn't exist, and it's got to be the most famous highway in the world. Mm-hmm. It's just astounding. And what this translates to for communities that get it and grasp this as a catalyst for revitalization, economic development, it's unprecedented, especially in rural communities.
Mm-hmm. And I think we're seeing that a lot. We've seen that a lot over the last few years, where people don't want the Disney as much as they want the authentic, exactly, experience. And I think that that's something that's happening. It's been happening for a few years now. So you're starting to see a lot of these communities along Route 66 reinvest in that idea of, to be authentic. Route 66 means that you're boarded up downtown businesses, your roads that are you can't navigate, or potholes, that they just get a fresh coat of paint. They get it kind of revitalized. And then when that happens, the tourists stop and they want to explore. And then when that happens, they bring money to spend in the community. And so other businesses open up to take advantage of that additional traffic. So I think that it's definitely a huge connection between tourism and economy are tied so closely together. And the tourism doesn't have to just be from other people in the state. These are people traveling from thousands of miles sometimes just to ride this road.
Well, tourism in general, but specifically Route 66, it's easy to get myopic on this, but tourism is more than heads and beds. Mm-hmm. It's an opportunity to showcase your community. Mm-hmm. And if you make a community inviting and welcoming and a destination for visitors, you make it a place that people want to live and retire and raise families and open businesses. Mm-hmm. So tourism, Bill Thomas puts it this way, that all tourism is economic development, mm-hmm, but not all economic development is tourism.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. So what's your next chapter in kind of the evolution of Jim Hinckley's America? Where do you see it in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years?
Well, since the apocalypse of 2020 and 2021, long-term planning is, I wonder what we're doing for lunch today.
Right.
But it's moving. I started a second podcast this last year, Car Talk from the Main Street of America. We've tinkered with this a bit, and we kind of decided we're going to take that in to focus heavily on alternative energy vehicles and blend the past with the present and even the future of this technology, because electric vehicles, of course, are a subject of contention and discussion right now. But a lot of people don't realize that, like Ferdinand Porsche started out with electric vehicles. Mm-hmm. The first pedestrian ever struck and killed in the United States by an automobile was 1898. A gentleman was struck by an electric taxi cab in New York City.
And a lot of people don't even know that there were such a thing.
No.
I bet you if you ask 10 people, maybe one might know that. I didn't know that.
Well, that's why my pa always said, better to fill the head with obscure knowledge than no knowledge at all.
Yeah. Yeah, so true though. Yeah. So the next chapter, continue?
Yeah, the next chapter we're going to we're moving things forward. I want to use, and I have been, I want to use Jim Hinckley's America as a platform to help communities and to help young people.
Welcome to the Business Buzz, now streaming on Dynamic Living Radio.
And I want to tell America's story. That's a big part of what we're moving into. I want to do more of that because that's gotten kind of, well, it's always been, but it's really become a toxic form of politicization, lately. And it shouldn't be. It should be much more than that. It should be an inspirational story. Yeah.
No, I think that's true. There's a couple things that people don't know that you do. One being that you do blogs. And the first thing to kind of understand about what a blog is it's really just a story or an article. A lot of people don't realize that every time they post on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, that is a form of a blog. It is content being put out on the internet for people to see. So something that you do, me and you have been working together on this for, I don't even know how long, probably 7 years you've been doing blogs, I think, with me. But that's a really cool service you do. It's a paid service. It's a way for an author to make money without writing a book. So you can do pretty much on any topic. I think you've proven that. I mean, we've done kites, we've done pest companies, we've done alcohol distributors, we've done, there's no breweries, trying to think of the other ones that you write about, printing and framing, the history of that. So that's something that is really cool that a lot of people don't know that you do, and now they do. It's a paid service. All they have to do is basically say, hey, this is what my business is, this is what we like to focus on, can you write some stuff about it? And that's a really cool thing. What's probably been, out of all the blogs that you've done, is there one that stands out that was like most quirky stuff that you came across that you wrote about?
It's all the time. When you get into this, and there again, another thing that's really key to being a writer, and for people who want to make a career just writing, a successful writer is someone that's the only thing you do for a living you can still eat every second day. So you have to come up with something, and you have to have an inquisitive nature, be fascinated by things. I never knew as much about kites as I do now, writing blogs and coming up with new material, fresh material about kites has been intriguing. But it's a constant voyage of discovery. It's just, there's always something new to discover, something new to learn, some new connection to things. It's just never ending quest for knowledge, and translating that into finance as well as using it to educate, to inform, inspire people.
And that's what's really cool about that service that you do is that, as somebody who builds websites, that a website's purpose is to represent a business and a brand and to drive traffic to it so that there's brand awareness. It helps with all of that because of the original content that's coming in, the keywords that are sprinkled throughout the article. When someone's searching for one of those related keywords, they're coming across these articles and reading it. It's also really cool to hear feedback from the owners of these businesses that are just like, I never knew that. That is so cool. They love the articles. And then the final part of the benefit of that is that we take them and we can reuse those for social media content. All the people out there that are trying to come up with stuff to post on their Facebook pages, you have businesses that are 1 person to 50 people, and they know social media is important, and they're trying to post things on a regular basis, but they kind of run out of ideas of what to post. We utilize those blog services that you give to take chapters of that blog article, part 1, part 2, part 3, and give people a glimpse into something they don't know. Just like you said, I think that with social media, you want to feed people stuff that they can predict is coming, and then you also want to feed them with things they don't know. Because if you give them what they expect too often, they'll start to tune it out. We all tune out commercials when we anticipate it's coming, and then it's on, you tune it out. If we can give them something that they can learn from or entertain them, then they'll continue to take it in. So that's a huge, huge benefit of it's not just a blog that's going on a website that that is just there to be there. It's there to be something that's informative, interesting, entertaining, and can be repurposed for so many other things. So it's a really good service that you offer that I think people need to know about. Yeah, for sure. Well, that's all the questions I had. I think that some of the questions we had built up were like around your own personal interests, but you're in your job, you're doing your interests, your hobbies, because I would be like, oh, what do you do when you're not working? What is one of your hobbies? But I feel like your hobby is your work.
Well, you gotta there again. You can't. I've always operated from a simple premise that if you're so myopically focused on making $1 million, that when you make that million, you've already lost because there's no life to that.
Yeah.
And this is the finances are sometimes elusive, but the reward and gain is not always monetary.
Right.
I've had the friendships that I have developed throughout the world through this Jim Hinckley's America, the writing, these things. I just don't even have adequate words to describe when some guy from from Kingman, Arizona, somebody surprises us when we're in Germany with a wedding anniversary. We had a dinner and a night at a 14th century German castle on the Rhine River. How do you
how do you quantify that?
Yeah, and it's just these kind of adventures and the people, the friendships, the adventures, and the diversity and the frustrations. There's a lot of that.
Yeah,
but that goes with the territory with any job.
Right. Yeah, you're always going to get a flat tire or hit a bump in the road. But if you didn't take that road, you'd have never experienced all the good it can come.
Well, I've had a lot of ups and downs, and I've had to reinvent myself a bunch. And but this has been one of the most rewarding adventures I've since I embarked on this full time about 8 years ago. It's been one of the most rewarding adventures I've been involved with, and I've had some adventures.
And how is it? So now it's been about 6 months or a year. How long? It's been about 6 months since the statue of you has been completed downtown Kingman. Yeah. So if you're driving through Kingman and you're going down Route 66, also called Andy Devine, by the train depot, and you look over and you see a big bronze statue. It is not a memorial. It is a statue of Jim to kind of represent his value to our community and bringing people here and telling the story of not just America, but Kingman, Arizona. And it's part of the starting point to a tour program that you can take by scanning QR codes and wandering about the downtown area and learning about these historic sites. Is it still weird driving by that and seeing it?
Well, yeah, it's weird to see it on Facebook, people taking pictures with it. I just had a note from an Australian tour company. They're asking if I would be here. They want me to do something for their dinner presentation. They want to take the walking tour, and they want a picture of me with the statue. And it's just it's kind of odd and surreal. I'm honored and humbled by this, but I'd probably feel more comfortable if they would have waited till I was dead first. It's definitely surreal.
Yeah, it's very cool. So, in that, you can see more about that tour project at kingman.tours, and you can learn more about Jim and read a lot of the articles he does, including reaching out for services like blogs or just sponsoring his programs. He's got a lot of different podcasts and things that he does, and he travels, and he's got to tell a little bit about your vehicle that you're going to be taking on the road once it's up and running.
Well, we've got a plan A and a B, and I'm working on a C if necessary, but the game plan is to resurrect a 51 Chevy panel truck and make it a rolling studio and promotional Route 66 and travel promotional vehicle for the upcoming Route 66 Centennial. And that's the current project I've been working on. It's a little behind schedule. Plan B is if that doesn't work, well, then we're going to go with a Model A Ford. I'll get something out there on the road.
Yeah. So if you want to get behind any of those projects, definitely go to JimHinckleysAmerica.com. You can do that. You can find him on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook, is it still? It's not the Jim Hinckley's America page now.
No,
James Hinckley.
Yeah, I've had to do this as James Hinckley.
Okay.
We're talking about the frustrations. We had almost 8,000 followers on Jim Hinckley's America.
Yeah.
For some reason, we've had problems with Facebook, and we've not been able to rectify.
Yeah, like everybody's had problems with them.
Yes. So you just have to take it on the chin and go another direction.
Yeah. Yep. And they can follow you there, and then follow you on your podcast. That's on Podbean.
It's Spotify, most platforms, and we have embedded players on Jim Hinckley's America for Coffee with Jim.
Perfect.
Is a live stream program on Sundays, and then Car Talk from the Main Street of America is recorded and it's posted on Fridays. And they're both on major platforms as well as on embedded players on the Jim Hinckley's America website.
Yeah, so they can follow you there. So cool. Anything else you can think of that's coming up in March or April?
Oh, there's all kinds of things. We've got the president of the Dutch Route 66 Association will be visiting in Kingman in a couple of weeks. The German Route 66 Association will be back for 2 tours this year. I'll be speaking in Apache Junction, part of the Arizona Lecture Series, the 1st of February, and about Route 66 in Arizona. There's the Route 66 Info Fair is coming up in Needles, California on February 11th. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of Route 66 Centennial initiatives underway.
And that's 2026.
2026. There's already a Facebook group. There's people making big plans for tours, traveling Route 66 in 2026.
Oh, yeah.
But this year, we've got all kinds of things coming down the pike. I work a lot with the folks in Tucumcari. We just completed a visitor's guide for them and working on a couple of projects there. AAA is partnered with the state of Oklahoma, hosting a Route 66 event now every year.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot happening. And then I wonder, are we doing another road trip day celebration this year?
Not here, no.
Not this year. Okay.
No, it won't
here.
be done in Kingman, no.
Okay.
Looks like probably Pontiac, Illinois.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
I betcha.
And we'll see everybody on the next episode of the Business Buzz.